Hello everybody. This is Miguel again on one of my walks. Hopefully you're doing okay today. I'm doing just fine. Just moving along forward in my day, little by little. I was reflecting on today, namely um, thinking about just how challenging it is today in the world. Here in 2020, we've got a lot of upheaval going on in the world. We've got COVID, which is creating upheaval in our medical establishments, and we've got, which is also, by the way, creating upheaval in our economic establishments. We've got political upheaval going on, serious political problems, and there's just so many things going on that it's really pretty phenomenal what kind of upheaval's going on here in 2020, 21. And, you know, we are only so insulated from it, even as a first world nation. Um, our insulation goes only so far, and it's kind of interesting how everyone is impacted by all the changes that are ongoing. In fact, even a lot of the same problems that have been existing still are there. Problems like climate change, they haven't gotten, those problems still exist. Problems like heart disease, cancer, uh, inequality, these problems all exist and continue. And I guess they're just being exacerbated by all the other problems that are going on. So it's kind of interesting. In a way, it's kind of like everyone's keeping their head down as these dark days pass by, and that's probably a good thing because there's a lot of change going on, and a lot of it is very novel to some extent, and so. Anyway, I'm appreciating somehow still being alive and thriving to some extent in the world, but I'm also very, very much aware of the huge changes that are going on. Quite interesting to see the changes in society and politics and cultures. We sort of navigate the situation. The same is true with psychology. Huge issues in psychology. I don't know how, there's so many social changes going on. I'm sure there are serious impacts to people's psychology, and psychology is a field that I have interests in. And, I want to praise the psychotherapists and psychiatrists who are still working in the world today to bring a little more peace to people's lives and happiness and joy, and their job has not gotten any easier over the last year or so with all these changes going on. And I want to praise those professionals who are working every day to help mend some of the fractures that are going on in society and in people's lives. I also want to commend everyone who's living during this time. All those individuals, basically every person on the planet, from the very oldest to the very youngest, from the people in the most developed urban countries or areas to the people in the least developed rural places. We've all been impacted by the changes going on, and I just want to talk about how impressed I am at everybody's ability to survive in this world now, which is quite an interesting, it's quite an interesting phenomenon going on now, and it's kind of interesting. There's no what I'd call natural catastrophe. I guess it is kind of like a natural catastrophe. There's, but typically when I think of natural catastrophes, I think of things like earthquakes and fire, and I think of comets and volcanoes and things like that. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm just pleased that things are moving along like they are for everybody. Just appreciate the strength of human beings. Homo sapiens sapiens, we're doing okay. And, let me tell you, there are a lot of other living things that aren't doing so great. For example, insects. I hear they're taking a tank. The number of their population has been decreasing quite significantly over the years or so I've heard. In fact, I've also noticed that I see a lot fewer insects in the world, and boy, that's a serious challenge. The food webs are really changing now, and I can only imagine what the future is going to bring without the insects. The insects are a seriously important part of what makes life on this planet possible. It they aerate the soil, and they give us the birds and the bees that we need and to grow our food, and I'm sure there's all kinds of other impacts that we're not noticing right now, and so that is some pretty serious stuff. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see if we as human beings even exist in 100 years. Anyway, hopefully I could be around for perhaps 50 or 50 of them. Anyway, let's see what else is going on. I know that's sort of like a down and dreary way to start a little video podcast. Let's see what else is going on in my mind. I was able to go weightlifting today, and I'm always glad when I'm able to do that. Weightlifting to me means it's a very meaningful activity. It means I'm taking care of my body. It means I'm taking care of my mind. It means it even relates to me being a father, because as a healthy person, I'm able to father my child as best I can, and I do a fine job of it because I'm in good mental and physical health. So there's a lot of things that it touches on, that physical well-being touches on. It means that I'm healthy enough to continue to go to work, things like that, to put food on the table. And so I appreciate that. I know that working out has positive impacts on my mental health, that it helps me to live more happily and more peacefully, that it just sort of gives me energy to be a good partner, a romantic partner to my girlfriend. And so for me, working out is basically an activity that I do to support every aspect of my life, including my health. I want to make sure that my blood pressure is under control, and my blood vessels are particularly healthy and happy, so that blood flow can go to all parts of my muscles and in my brain and through my brain, and can help give you the energy that I need for those cells to continue to operate healthy and happily. So let's see what else is going on. Besides working out. Well, speaking of health, you may not know this, but I do check my blood glucose level pretty regularly. And I just want to make sure that everything's looking okay in that area. I do have a history of diabetes in my family, and so, I check with the blood glucose meter. But I have 2 blood glucose meters right now. Actually, I think I've got 3, but 2 of them were just discontinued by the manufacturer, and I discovered this by not being able to find any test strips on the internet anywhere. So Anyway, I got a new blood glucose test meter, or at least I purchased one, and I'll be receiving one in the mail in the coming days. So that'll be interesting. It's just kind of interesting how, I guess, yeah, I kind of just assumed that these blood glucose meters would just be a constant in the universe and they would just never change. But now that I think about it, that's definitely not a realistic idea. I do have this idea. It's kind of funny. I'm kind of a creature of habit myself, and I am being a creature of habit kind of means that I like to do the same things again and again and again. Like when I was a kid, I had a pair of tennis shoes that I just kept forever and ever and ever. And, or at least this is my impression of me as a kid anyway. I sort of had this thought that I kept my tennies around for a long, long time. And there are other things that I tend to do a lot. I find ruts and I stay in them. And I'm really happy in my rut. I love my ruts. I'm feeling so satisfied in my ruts. I love doing the same things all the time, eating the same food. Although I do like to change things up every once in a while, get novelty and a little excitement here and there. But for the most part, I like doing the same thing. I like having the same job. I like having the same girlfriend. I just don't want things to change. I like having the same car. I love when things are the same. I love this routine. I go to the gym, and I love going to the gym. It's kind of funny. And it's most of the time I don't like to change up. I don't like to change things. I'm a creature of habit. I want things to be the same. So it was kind of a novel experience to have. I mean, to have a change in relation to, say, the blood glucose meter. It was kind of like, what? That's not supposed to happen. Of course it is. It changes. The only constant in the universe. And of course I'm changing daily. I don't have any choice, really. You can never step into the same river twice, right? And so I recognize this as a fact, but I tell you what, I sure do love not changing. I sure do love not changing. I wonder what it is about not changing that I love so much. Well, here's the thing. It's sort of like a habit that gets ingrained in my neuron, just like a neuroplasticity thing. I do have neuroplasticity, but and I'm sure I challenge my brain every once in a while, but man, it's not something that I find very pleasant. Now, I have to caveat that fact with the idea that I do like surprise every once in a while, and I'll even change things up myself. But these kind of changes are very controlled. Like these are changes in my diet. I might try a new fruit or a new vegetable or a new food, and maybe a new dessert. I think yesterday you heard me talk about whipped cream desserts and things like that. Like, wow, that's pretty exciting. For me, that's exciting. I'm not necessarily a person to change cities that I live in very readily. I mean, the last city I lived in Lompoc for 23 years, and that was not necessarily a city that was fit for me and my interests. But that's just who I am. I just love the routine. I wish there was a way for me to tell, to check which parts of my life needed changing and which ones don't. Because the fact is, if it's the same, I'm typically I'll go with it. I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, I guess that's probably how I get a lot of my comfort. Maybe that's why I'm so good at building habits. Like, for example, this habit of talking into this smartphone every evening when I go for my walks. You know, it's just what I like to do. It's just part of my personality. Anyway, I just wanted to relate that. All right, let's see. What else is going on? Oh, I was just thinking for a moment that, um, there are a lot of people playing video games in the world. And there's been a new series of video game consoles come out, or are coming out. I guess there's the Sony PlayStation 5, and I think Xbox has got another series of another console coming out or something like that. And I'm kind of feeling even more left behind than I was before. And I'm not sure that's ever going to change. I'll tell you what, I've been reminiscing lately about playing video games. And here's the thing about video games. I love the idea of playing video games, and I actually pretty much love playing video games when I play them. But I don't play them often enough to justify buying an entire console to play them. And I just don't have the time. I'm doing so many other things, work, girlfriend, and really what I want to do is I want to go to school. Once COVID lifts, I definitely want to start hitting the university or the community college or something like that. Because I love in-person educational instruction. I'm not necessarily a big fan of online education. I mean, I did do some of it. I did do online education to get my MBA. And I mean, you can't really live in the world today without doing online education in some form or fashion. I've learned a lot through YouTube. But my preferred method of education is through face-to-face. I love having new experiences and going to new places and meeting new people and putting my hands on equipment and things like that. That's just my kind of education. It's just so stimulating. That's not to say that reading a book or a textbook isn't stimulating, I read all the time, or even watching videos isn't stimulating, or that I can't read, or that I can't, or that, learning through watching videos isn't stimulating. It all is. But I just like that full immersive experience. So I am kind of, I don't know, maybe that's why partly video games are not necessarily my thing anymore. It's because I love immersing myself in the world. I don't know. I kind of wish sometimes that I did have the time and the patience to play video games these days, but I just don't have it. The fact is, I just don't have a lot of time, particularly with work and a girlfriend. I don't know how, basically, I don't even know how I'm going to squeeze in education. But we'll see. Maybe I will be able to squeeze in a class here and there. Though I don't think I'll be able to squeeze in any video games. It's just my life. When I was a kid, when I was in middle school and junior high and high school, I had the time to play video games. But I don't know, as an older person, I just don't have the time to do it. I guess what needs to happen is that video games need to be a lot more immersive. That's kind of interesting. If virtual reality video games really, really takes off, I've done my share of sort of experimenting with virtual reality, but if virtual reality really becomes like breakthrough level and it just proliferates like crazy, I'm definitely going to get involved in it. But until that happens, I'm just not seeing it. Until the depth of virtual reality games becomes just, I guess that'll only come with artificial intelligence and, and the inroads that artificial intelligence is making. I guess I'm not seeing those inroads happen. I mean, I'm seeing them happen, of artificial intelligence in making inroads into my life. Certainly through Google Assistant, through personal assistants like Google and maybe Alexa, and even Apple's Siri. You know, I actually use all three of those services. Mostly I use Google though. But anyway, you know, until artificial intelligence really becomes a thing, like a super thing, I don't think I'll ever really get into virtual reality. Hopefully, I'm hoping that I will though. Who knows? Maybe in 5 years, we'll see. It'll be something that's jaw dropping. Anyway, talk to you later. Bye bye.